hope everyone had enough coffee because we're going to attack quite technical subject. Well, dear participants and dear organizers, thank you very much, of course, for having us here. We have heard lots of really impressive stories and sometimes really, also in the past years, some very didactic presentations, anyway, even motivational material and even flowers now. So I really personally think that this venue is great and it taught me a lot. So as Anne mentioned, we are here to talk about one of the hundreds of business processes which exist in Euroclear. We both work in these institutions already for some time. Euroclear, as many probably of you know, is one of the world's biggest providers of post-trade financial services. We have our entities which are located in several European countries, with also branches and rep offices all over the world. We actually on a weekly basis, we settle the number of financial transactions which is comparable with the GDP of the entire European Union. And also we safekeep already the assets, the securities for our client for already more than 27 trillions of euro. And they always had a growing trend. So with this volume, we are considered systemically important institution. It means that all the way we manage our risk and all our risks are under particular attention of regulatory supervision. I'm working in audit division. As you can imagine, the business of Euroclear is extremely automated. So we have a huge IT department, which is really the backbone of, I would say, our organism. And software engineering is a very important area. Being exactly, as you can imagine, systemically important means that really looking at one of the main things particularly, so all three lines of defense about risk are very much concentrated on IT area. And so, as I said, I'm working at the moment in a very busy audit division in the unit of data analysis. And my background, before I used to do some quantitative analysis in pure product management tasks, so mainly looking at the business performance. But since recently I joined, and very happily now, big enthusiasm of mining the data for the process now. Daniel works in actually IT division, so I'll let you say about the...
So, yes, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm an IT manager. I've worked all my life in IT, and today I run several teams based in different locations in Europe, and we do component management. So I'm pretty sure that not too many of you know what component management is, so I'm going to explain in a few slides. So how did I get involved with data mining? Every year, every single year comes October, I have the auditors knock on my door, and they come in, and I know that's it, I'm ruined. My agenda is ruined. For the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be stuck in a room with them. I'm going to have to answer questions. It's not going to be fun, so no more golfing, it's done. So, after a while, you start thinking, you know, it would be nice if I could get away with it. And I thought, you know what, I'm an IT person, and I know we have a wealth of data in IT, in the computers. So I sat down with the auditors and I told them, you know what, I got an idea. We're going to provide you a lot of data. And so that's when I was introduced to Olga for data mining. And I told her, yeah, we have a lot of data. If you could massage it and present it to the auditors, they wouldn't have to come to me. I wouldn't have to sit down in a room locked for a couple of weeks and answer questions over and over again, and the same questions every year. So she said, okay, let's go with it. So that's how we started this story. And it's been a year already, pretty much.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so yes, as Daniel said, we were introduced, but there is also a responsible IT auditor, and this is where we started within already audit division having the discussions. We were just actually very interested, of course, because as many audit departments in industry, we are really now striving to get more data-driven approach, and the continuous audit is always on the mouth of everyone. The IT auditor knew already that we had an experience of working with process mining for the 2 past audits. One was really a great success in the P2P in the financial area, and another was also an operational area. So we started looking, could we just go for it? We were really interested also to start advancing in this area of software engineering, which was notoriously extremely complex and very complex to audit in a traditional way. So for the go, not to go decision, we just started outlining our objectives, whether we had means to reach those objectives, and then just we had to do some cost-benefit evaluation. The first objectives which came to our mind would not be very different from probably everyone who starts their projects. We wanted, first of all, to construct the process map, which was recognizable, really recognizable by the business, because like this we were sure that the business owners will identify as the deviations area, and this is what's really good base for us to start performing the audit analysis of risks which are linked to those deviations. Having done this analysis, we would just be really already ready to start building the means for some continuous monitoring, which is indispensable ingredient of continuous audit. So we would just really thought that we would advance, we could potentially add to our audit universe one more process for which we could say, it's a continuous audit approach. So what about means? Endeavor is the tool which is managed on a daily basis by the business owners. Luckily, it was registering all the activities every day with all the characteristics of all those activities, putting out on it a timestamp. So we really had all the necessary ingredients to construct a log. I had really a bonus of working with IT divisions. They are really very equipped, so I cannot really complain about how much time it took me to extract the data. They thought about everything, and that was really a gift. I knew I will have to pay for it later, but anyway, so yeah, really we were lucky we didn't have this problem. So with a relative ease, we could really automate this extraction, and so we knew that at the end of close of the business, we would have the update on the daily work, on the daily activities of this team. Well, we had actually, for once, really great enthusiasm of the audited team, and well, not yet completely audited, but still, we really had great interest and already the support of management. This was always extremely important ingredient. And then finally, yes, we had a bit of experience and skills in audit division, and then we had DISCO. So it was already practiced, and so we had. So we saw that we quite well equipped. Now was a turn to just evaluate a little bit our benefits and costs. We already were familiar that the process, again, I'm repeating myself, but it's extremely complex. The classical flow charts looked like really mandala of really needed particularly advanced engineering skills to study them well. But notwithstanding that, we saw that the benefits were profiling to be quite significant. It's worth saying that we knew already from the start that unfortunately we're in the dense planning schedule of both divisions, we would hardly squeeze a formal project with a formal budget, with resource allocated, with planning and so on. So that was really only possible in much longer run. The curiosity, the momentum was there. So we decided that rather the benefits were just far too important to let them go, and we used the momentum. And in addition, we thought that we will really get exercised. So it was really also an exercise for us just to get going a little bit with analyzing this software development processes. It was really giving the impression we're really lowering the barriers, and we just wanted to advance in that direction. So as we see, we decided for go, and in the next some 15 minutes, we will try to see a little bit some practicalities of how did we actually finally reach the methodology, and it was all about that of getting to tracing the part of the data set which is more meaningful about describing the cases which do not have absolutely any justification for the deviations. So we had to look at the process in a completely new way. So that is a bit also particularity of our case. We were not only following just the classical vision of the business on their process, but they made them a little bit think out of the box. And in doing so, it was not, of course, easy. We had to twist always the vision of the process like a bit of cubic, something, I don't know, you can find any, of course, allegory with it. But just was worth saying that our journey is not yet over. We are still in the pilot case. In the pilot phase, and it was a pilot case, and we're still in pilot phase in the sense that so far we calculated we reached 3.5 of our objectives. So out of the 5, it was like nearly 70% of the things which we were quite happy. And so there are still things on which we are going to advance, and we are going to look at it a little bit toward the end after we talk about more practicalities. So, and before we just dive in how did we tackle, how did it go, we will be a little bit more methodological. Hopefully it will go in a good pace, not to get everyone very much into technical details. So before I start, I let Daniel explain really the business background for all of this, for this process, what it is all about, and yes, what's the map and the data and the finally benefits for the business side.
So this is our division component in data management. So we are part of delivery excellence department. In this case today, we're going to talk about a software, a mainframe software, software configuration management software called Endeavor, sold by Computer Associates. Of course, we manage software for a distributed platform in Unix, Windows environments using TFS, Team Foundation servers. We use Endeavor on the mainframe. We use Changeman. It's also an IBM product. We have Tandem, all kinds of platform systems. So it's very diverse. And today we're going to focus only on Endeavor. So it's a mainframe software configuration management software. So what it is all about, software configuration management. Basically, what we do, I like to explain to people in layman's terms, we're bookkeepers. Instead of taking care of books, when you go to a library, you ask for a book. Okay, I check. Is it in the back? Yes, we have the book. I'll give it to you. Instead of dealing with book, we deal with programs, IT programs. So you can come, ask me a program, start modifying it. Somebody can come and say, hey, I want the same one. Okay, I'll give you the same version. And you take it and go away and start working on it. And at any given point in time, you could have maybe 50 different people working on the same program. So you can tell it could become chaos very quickly. And so you have different versions of programs, different levels. You can keep 99 levels, 99 versions of the same program. because for audit purposes, because auditors might come back 5 years down the road and ask you, okay, who did this change that year on this environment? And you have to show them this person changed, added this line of code, deleted this line of code, and so on. So you have to keep everything. So you have a log of everything on the mainframe. So that's basically what we do. We manage code, software. We make sure that you're allowed to see it, you're allowed to modify it, because it's very sensitive. And after, there's the whole life cycle. So I'm going to show you the life cycle of the software. So that's a basic, simple map. So it reads from the bottom up. And you'll see you have what we call streams. Olga might use different words because depending on the country, they use French words or English words or so on. So she might use corridor or channel or there's different words. Anyway, you have 7 different corridors, and it starts at the dev stage at the bottom. So here we are. You have a developer checking out the program and starting to modify it. It's at the dev stage, and he's going to run some unit tests. After it goes to another stage where you do system testing. You make sure that your program doesn't mess up all the other programs it's working with. After you go to system testing, you go to integration testing, you go to customer acceptance testing, you go to performance testing. You have many steps where you do run some tests against the program to make sure it works, okay? And now we're talking about over 1 million programs, and when you go into production, you have over 20,000 programs in 1 weekend, new programs, and you need to deliver in production. So you need to make sure that everything is in order. And our team, what we do all kinds of quality controls, security controls, make sure that everything is fine before we deploy to production. In fact, we don't deploy because we need segregation of duties, so it's another team. But that's how it works. Now, it's pretty simple, but as you can see, there's different streams. And why? Because you have parallel testing. As I said, at any given point in time, you could have several projects running in parallel. Stream number 1 might be what we call the September release. Stream number 2 might be the October release, and so on. So you might have the same program in different streams, and at the same time, you could be unit testing the program, you could be integration testing the program, you could have the program all over the place. So at the end of the day, you need to make sure that what you're going to put into production is a good one. You need to make sure that you don't lose changes. So you have to be very careful. And also you have to run quality tests. You have to run security tests and so on. So it's very, very complex. And the life cycle of the program goes from bottom up. And it also goes sideways. So it goes all over the place. And when we gave data to Olga, it's a daily file, so that comes from the mainframe, that monitors, tracks all the movements of all the programs within this life cycle. And so it's a huge amount of data, and the challenge for Olga was to clean up, weed out all the noise, and be able to focus on exactly what she wanted. And what we decided at the beginning is we're going to focus on only one stream. We don't want to see anything else. So that was a challenge. So I think that's about it. The benefits for us, for our team, for the business, is helping us because we wanted to make sure that we didn't forget the developers, the tester, because we have different teams involved in the process. We wanted to make sure that all the tests were run at each and every stage. And if they were not run, we need to have an explanation. We need to know why. And sometimes there is good explanation. What we want to do is just put out red flags and tell them, okay, here we have a doubt. Could you explain why this program is not being tested in performance testing? Well, maybe they don't have a link to the central bank, or they don't have the data to test the program. So there is explanation, but that's not for us to decide. That's for them. But we want to present them the facts, hard data. So This way, there's no discussion and everything is clear. So the versioning and the duration, we wanted to make sure that the programs were being tested for a significant period of time in each environment. So we want to have a continuous monitoring via dashboard. Why? Because again, talking to the auditors, well, it's nice. They come to me at the end of the year. They want to know what happened for the last 12 months. But it's a bit late in the game to come up and say, why do we have these problems? If we could do it on a daily basis, have a dashboard, and it would be dynamic, and we wouldn't lose so much time trying to understand what happened 6 months ago. So that was the idea. So it's saving my time, saving auditors' time, also presenting the dashboard to the users, the developers, the testers, so they can see, okay, we have a program, this is a very strategic program. Why is it not tested correctly in this environment? Why didn't we do any performance testing? So for them, it's also very important. So there's all the stakeholders, there's many stakeholders that have interest in having the data and being able to see what's going on. So I think that's pretty much. I mean, that's already a lot. That was a quick crash course on software development. Hopefully, I was clear enough. So I'll hand it over to Olga.
Yes. So as Daniel mentioned, there were very significant for them benefits. We just very quickly outline what was on our side, the overarching, again, the benefit of having one more process of our universe really officially onboarded for the continuous auditing. And then, of course, the main ingredients of this also assessment of the complexity of those software development processes in real life, awarenesses of risk, and of course control gaps, the control environment analysis. Then yes, the classical inefficiencies. Then we were just hoping really to gain more credibility than afterwards in clearance, so the credibility with our audit business. And then of course last but not least the visualization, because they're really a high impact, and the past experience showed that it can really be a game changer in clearance of audit analysis. So before I'm getting a little bit I'm trying to get in more practical side of all of this. I think, Daniel, I can even just let you sit down and relax a bit, because I will be speaking more about the methodology we applied in getting to our objectives. So I remember, again, so the very first one was to construct this process map, and so that it is recognizable. If we look again at this simplified map, all our tests, what I got in the very beginning is just the query which was extracting things with a condition on only one corridor stream. 2 months of data, of course, was not yet a lot, but there was lots of curiosity about how does it look, what are we going to see. And let's quickly have a look. What did I get? I said already that I was really lucky to receive already very nice CSV file. They were, of course, not without some data quality issues, but that's a different story. Of just looking at this, it was a huge amount of fields and so on, but it already shows that we had the unique identifiers of the work item. We had the potential several things for. No, we had the fields for activities. We had the timestamp. Now, actually, then looking at it a little bit more precisely, we saw that there would be choice to do. For example, already the work items, we had a choice to do among two. So we had this package, because business always speaks about the testing, the executing the package of the component of the programs, which are sometimes interconnected between them. But then we noticed also that, okay, we have also the unique identifier of this component, and it is also divided in source and the target. So, yeah. Then what else for the timestamp? there was this execution, so it rang the bell of the discussion with audit, but then we found some 6 other timestamps, and they were also describing the life cycle of which components. So it was really, we had to still figure out which were redundant and which we could also use, or maybe for repair of the blanks of the main ones. So it was, quite showing that there will be choices to make. Now, the process, what process goes through, as Daniel mentioned, do remember the steps, and the steps actually was showing also the source and the target, so it was really complicating the matter. Of course, choosing from if the working item was going from one source, to a target, and how other things were going, it was all still the things which we were going to see. As I said, there was lots of curiosity. We were just, we had these 2 months of data. We just said, let's go for it. And so what are we choosing? We hear that the business always, again, speaks about in terms of packages. So we take the very first identify the package. So then we check, okay, our normal 8 steps, very just to show in a simplified way here. So we construct the log, we run this, and our first map. So, of course, the map was not a flow. It was, of course, for the data analyst, it was a little bit more obvious from the very beginning, but these kind of things, it's really very nice to show to the business from the very beginning. So you really see, you show them visually what kind of process they have in mind. So it was no wonder they could not really speak a bit about deviations and something, because basically what we were talking about is the process, again, which goes the life cycle of actually only one step. So there was a package bringing things from one step to another, from one step to another, So the rules are more clear. Deviations, which deviations do we want? So you already know in advance well. But what was really what we wanted to see is the flow. We wanted to see really the longer life cycle. How does it go through all of those things to arrive to this seventh sky of pre-production? So we actually needed another case ID. And so here we start looking at constructing new log. So this is our first already the modified angle of looking at the process. We take another unique identifier. Luckily, source and target are presenting themselves the same. I mean, the data set had actually some 40 parameters, almost all of them parameters are the attributes which were describing these components, the programs. Every time divided in source and the target, and sometimes also multiplying different typology of the family to which these components. So it was really very, very multi-faceted thing. So we are taking this, again, going through 40 parameters, we were thinking, you know, how would be the best way of doing, and then finally we just decided to take another attribute, and so we're constructing basically our first, it's already second scenario, but this is the string of our unique identifier with type. So we're going to look at the traffic of and the path which are reached by those components of a given type. So what we're trying to reach something like this. So this is what is in our mind, and now the question is, what are going to be into those? So I'm not inviting you to look at really how it looks, but just the shape of it. So the shape was supposed to be really the flow, and now the question was, what are we taking for the activities? Really vast choice. Looking at from the very beginning, the work item could move in at least 4 different ways, between stages, between environment, between streams, between some types of activities, from transformation, delete, or something like this. So we're just going for the most simple one and taking, yes, as in the map, they are again divided source and target, so we are trying both. And our first map, target not recognized at all. So we are just, again, looking at the concrete cases. They're saying, so what? They're not used really to think in terms of the components, and so the flow is really new look. So let's say, okay, then we are taking the targets. Another map, still not recognized. Even though, you know, for the data analysis thing, I was trying to convince them, look, we already start having the flow test, and they again looking, but there are components which are jumping so many steps, that's not possible. and saying, yes, but the data suggests, so that's not possible. So we are digging and digging in looking at the statistics of the discourse. So the discourse really allows immediately see what are the variants, and we are really very busy in doing this. So finally, the question which always comes back is where it comes from. So we're looking at the target, so we are just modifying again a little bit activity, and it will give yet another look. We have now then promoted from to, and that increases the number of activities. We don't have anymore 8, so each of 8 can potentially be joined by 8 other sources. So we are getting to the map. In the meantime, actually, just to say that we are accumulating 6 months of the data, but we always still filter only on one stream, because we are thinking that other streams would behave in a similar way. So 6 months of data, this really starts already looking familiar, and the people appreciate that they have already at least part of process which behaves orderly. We are just again still having the questions. So we are thinking why it would be such a big part of frequency of jumping all of those. As Daniel mentioned, it was not really desired thing, that there is some little noise of strange thing. Yeah, it took a long time. So validation of this map and digging into it, it was quite a period that we spent. Then, in the meantime, we arrived to the 10 months of data. The number of activities on the map is really starts getting dense. It was not really very much anymore feasible to verify each time for the concrete cases. So. On this point, I decided that we really need to have a turn, that there was this asymmetric information which I really needed to reduce. So, and here I recommend, I just put to say that I was slicing and dicing the data set. I did it with with Tableau, but I mean, it's of course depending on the size of your data set, you can do it with anything, or Excel, Access with SQL, you know, you really use what you used. But what I would really like to make a point is that when you have such a big data set, it was very useful to see all the possible combination and intersection and the interdependency of various parameters, because finally I discovered myself something which was so obvious to process owners that they've never actually mentioned it in our discussions. It was this parallelism. So the parallelism of which Daniel was saying, it never came really explicitly, and it came out from the data. So basically, you know, to schematically, what I kind of discovered is that the thing was behaving actually like this, you know, so that I didn't really know about it. So I came to the business and said, yes, actually, it's obvious, didn't you know? I said, well, no. And finally, so what we are doing here now, I'm adding the label of the stream. I want to see what is going on, and we are getting this case ID from stage of this stream to the stage of this stream, targets, and now we have the right to our spaghetti or capellini. I don't know how you more prefer to look at it. So we play a little bit with a zoom, and now we're getting to this map, which really shows the full complexity of what is going on in this our 10 months of time. We really start seeing those kind of clustered areas, which were each really speaking about some concrete stream where the things were going on. And then zooming it a little bit, so we were very happy. I thought that we are really advancing well on the recognizability, but so we see really the number of actions which were going in parallel and were attributable to one concrete stream was easy. Then again, we're jumping in too many concrete cases investigations, but now what we have realized, we just introduced one more complexity of validation, because not only they were only looking how come that it goes from this stage to another stage. Now they also have to explain how come, is it correct, is it illegitimate that it goes from one stream to another. So just two things all together. So we had really to disentangle it. And this is really was very nice actually take that we took on our process is the helicopter view. We also introduced here some business dimension, because each stream was used actually twice during our things. The famous release, which is kind of a deadline when the program is rolled out, when it starts being a part of software which is rolled out and then will be a part of the normal business. So we are labeling it with a stream which is, and then we're doing the map. This was the famous helicopter view, which could allow us to first verify separately, was it really legitimate that it goes from one corridor from one stream to another, from another stream. I'm not going to focus, of course, here on some concrete findings, but just as an example of the question that it could answer from the business point of view. For example, how come? This is a little bit fantasy data, so I have just to do a little disclaimer because, of course, we could not show, we didn't want to go into particularity, but it proves, it's still conceptually valid. Why, for example, after the September, is it correct that the components start being tested for the March release? We have also business objective. Is the prioritization of rolling out of those pieces of project is correct? Is it okay that after November release it goes immediately the things in the June? And what about at the previous, chronologically previous release? Is it legitimate? So we needed more. So it really triggered lots of additional investigations. It was really great also for the business to get completely aware of this. So it was interesting. Of course, we also didn't deprive ourselves of the animation view, which really showed where there was big frozen, where the workload was more dense, how it was going in terms of intensity. Always that I think everyone knows. That was nice. After having this helicopter view was actually very easy then to go back to the details, and we were really thought that we are now advancing very well to getting our first objective of getting completely recognizable maps. So we are just giving again this business a bit dimension to the initial action promoted from 2, and so we combine those two, and now we start having this shape of the map. Again, I'm not going into the concrete findings, but it starts being really already, very structured, very elegant. We saw exactly no more than 8 steps per, much less steps per each stream, which was, and we thought that now we will start recognizing, but there are lots of steps are missing. And then the most biggest question which was arising every time is that the pre-production, the most important step, was not visualized like a direct follower of our first mission, the first corridor. It seemed that all the components which were tested there as an original, they originated in a certain stream, were never going as a direct follower into pre-production. Was it possible? They were saying no, but they were also thinking in terms of packages, so we had lots of discussions. So that was a bottleneck, really. On a certain point, we just really was stuck, and what I wanted to share, a little bit of thought, how did we get out of this? Every time we were speaking about it and going again to check for the concrete cases, the first thing I remember, every time what the business owners wanted to see is the package. So I said to myself, this is really a great reference point. This is where their rules in their head are really, this is the only thing which makes them to be completely sure, not looking through loads and loads, various attributes. So what I did, I introduced the additional thing, which is a package profile. I called it like this. So basically it's substring of the initial unique identifier, which we discarded completely because it was really, do you remember, it was showing this map, which was absolutely not a process, it was the too short scope, so we discarded. But now, extracting substring, now we don't see everything, but now our action was combining those two, and it was great for the data analysis because it had a reference to the target and to the source, and it was giving really more accurate level of detail about actually the rules. And so that was actually the major breakthrough, because having this map immediately allowed the business owners to eliminate all the legitimate exceptions. We depurated our data set really very quickly. Validation went just completely. So we stayed on the only the subset of cases which, if deviated, could not be justified. They did not really have any particular characteristics. They didn't qualify for any for those jumping the steps or doing some particular rework. Then finally, it allowed us to make sure that finally, our kind of big fear that there is no direct follower from our original corridor. So we found everything, we could visualize it, and then finally we just sliced it back into the initial our mission to see really one corridor at a time, and this is in our initial mission now. Again, given that I had to modify a little bit the data to present it, so just don't look but conceptually still it allows to see that we saw where you see the green phase that we found our final reaching the production and the time. So we could really, on the basis of this, to construct the most accurately calculated KPIs and also the KPIs of duration, which I don't show here, but we really were actually very reassured because compared to the benchmark which business owners had in mind, even also from point of view audit, we could just give an assurance that things were going actually quite fine. There are still some discussions going on and business owners still need to speak with some indirect stakeholders. But so basically, just to conclude, we were at 2/3 of our objective. So then we actually managed to do some prototype KPI. They still also were getting consensus about those. Then the audit still has a homework to do to put a layer of audit assessments on that. So it was actually, we went through all those steps in many months with various stop and go. And so the lessons I could share with colleagues who would need to start it, probably such a complex process again. I will very quickly touch on those. Then for me, the number one is really talk to many experts because the biased view exists and that sometimes people are so much set in the imagination of the process that when you introduce some new angle and so on, the validation can be really speed up. Not only validation, but actually your work as a data analyst could be really have less blocking factors because the views of many experts are really complementary. Now, the taking completely new look of the process. It could be really more comfortable from data analysis point of view. In my case, I really learned that it can just really slow down very much the validation. So sometimes depends on which kind of your setting of your process, but you really can even risk to lose the momentum and the people kind of maybe start losing a bit enthusiasm. So I would just really, in my future work, I will always keep some element which gives a correct, immediate reference to the business owners. In our case, it was to remember again the package ID information, some details which were stored in this ID of package. Now, helicopter view, that's really truly big picture, all the main trends. For me, it's really a must, and it just triggers so many questions and facilitates lots of other discussions. Regular talk to senior management, yes, it's always recommended. You know, you really stay high on the goals because otherwise you really have a tendency, maybe sometimes with operators, to go into many micro-analysis. And then, yeah, there was one also particularity of me wearing two hats. So I was a data analyst who was working mainly with business, but I was also an auditor. I really had to think to getting the maximum of our collaboration. I mean, useless to say, but you know, people working with auditors, checking the data. There was a little, I sensed that there was a little bit just kind of complete automatic reflex to start checking whether the error has not been made, whether everything went fine. So I'm not speaking about the blame. I don't think that it was about this, but it was just absolutely natural desire verifying, oh, didn't I do something? So I really saw the big difference in our collaboration went completely on a different level when we shifted attention to the fact that we're trying to work out the rules in order to get our alerts and risks to identify better the deviation going forward. So this kind of forward-looking and the fact that you're not really reporting on the past deviations, on the past things. In my case, yeah, exactly. So wearing the two hats for the auditor and data analytics was very useful. So what's next? As I mentioned, we're still not on our objective for the building the mean of the continuous monitoring We are going to work also on this, and this is probably on improvements, and I will let also Daniel speak about it. But at the moment, the future research we are going to dedicate to the fact that our KPIs, once we get a consensus of all parties who are going to use them, are they working well? Do they give enough accuracy? Don't we want to actually start also add some other factors, and we could blend the data also with processes which are closely connected to this. In our case, it was also incident management, the defects management. Would be nice maybe also to see at the statistics of the sprints of developments, many things are still in our head. So the improvements agenda, I don't know, I'll let in the first, so there are some quick wins, the longer plans, I don't know, we could hear in the first hands how the improvements are kind of looked upon by the management of this team.
Well, first of all, I would like to add that it's been quite a journey, and we're starting to answer the main questions, and hopefully I'll get to play golf more than... but yes, we have a lot of improvements in mind, and we would like to present the results in a dashboard, so we could give it to the users, and they won't need us to look at the numbers, to look at the...
Maybe you want to say about the quick wins, of course, all the things which we discovered about the data quality. Right, so the improving also improving data quality seemed to be quite rather quick win, right?
Yeah,
yes, we discovered, of course, the blanks and the things which were not populated, especially the fields which were not mandatory, which were not registered by the system. They were done maybe by users, so that was already one of the first thing. And so hopefully going forward, the extract will be really already more accurate. And so yeah, we are looking now at how to automate our dashboards. And then yes, finally the final audit assessments of risk and control. So that's really now our ways are a little bit separating. The business will be thinking about the improvements, and we're having our part of work to do. So yes, just to keep the process in the healthiest shape. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope I can answer some questions.
Thank you both for sharing your story. I will start with the first question. We have time for a few questions. If, like before, please raise your arm if you want to ask a question to Olga and Daniel. My question, Olga, to you, to start off is, you mentioned all these different iterations you had to go through to get to a process map that is actually recognizable to the business people. So I was curious, how did you manage to keep their cooperation? Was that difficult? Were they interested in that, or were they kind of, when you came back the fifth time, you know, or did they? How did you manage that kind of people aspect of it?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, this cooperation was a little bit bumpy because, of course, people have. I mean, this is extremely busy division. You know, people also have the main tasks. So already only to find the slot, because it's not a thing which you can verify quickly in 10 minutes. So for them to find this, and we know also that process mining is also a certain way of thinking, isn't it? It's not really the classical analysis. You really need maybe already employing your imagination, really abstract thinking, and especially in our case, it was really they had to look at this completely with new eyes. It was not just in terms of usual assembling of the package, executing the package. It was really thinking in much longer perspective. Yes, I had basically to let them sometimes mature into the comprehension of the business. So that was one of the drawbacks, of course, of this complete pilot case. There was a bit of uncertainty when I will have the feedback and so on. So just constantly stimulating the appetite for discovering new things, then just trying. I was mentioning, okay, I skipped, of course, just because it would be completely overwhelming. But all the fields and all the attributes are always divided in source and target. And how would you see it? Do you look only the source? Let's try that. Target, let's try. And sometimes they were just getting on purpose angry. So they were saying, no, Olga, it just cannot be possible. It's just your data. And you were replying, no, that's your process. And so again, just going like this, I'm of course making a caricature a bit. But the interaction, I found the thing which was really very good, which was shifting the things, is the constantly proposing them a concrete bunch of cases, which were, the variant number 1, presented a little bit with good visualization. So the visualization of all these things, when they were just starting saying, no, it just cannot be possible, was just triggering their curiosity. And so that was for me the best way. But yes, of course, you could not avoid some stop and go, yeah. That's
great,
how it went.
More questions for Olga and Daniel?
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you for a fascinating presentation. I have a question to Daniel. I don't know how this project was financed in your organization, but how do you quantify the benefits, or how do you set it up to senior management? How do you provide them with the feedback that this is valuable, and also to thereby possibly continues this process of introducing process management within the organization?
Well, thank you for asking the question. So, to tell you the truth, we did it on the background. This wasn't a project. We didn't have a budget for it, so I came to my team and I said, okay, I got an idea, let's run with it. And Olga and the auditors were very into it because they saw the benefits for them as well. So so we decided to do it on the background. So.
Yeah, it was a little bit, all the budget issues were rather on the audit side, because I'm working for the audit division. So the only budget which the team had to provide on this side is actually those slots when we had to really book long time. The engineers there are so busy and they hardly have any spare hours. And yes, on our side, we just have at the moment some initiative going on, which is dedicated to develop more continuous auditing. So we have different procedures like audit scanning, and it is actually in the framework of all this kind of deliverable of audit, which is called audit scan, which is part of continuous auditing, that we could dedicate some resource to that. Also this project, it has lots of uncertainties, so it is really very difficult to just set a slot and completely know, especially when you are dealing with a process of a certain area for the first time. So yeah, I was lucky that I was given that a bit liberty to go a bit at the pace of people, so not to overwhelm them so that we could reach actually some success. And then we stimulated lots of really appetite for improvements and for continue yet to go for other processes in this area, and there are really hundreds of them.
But I have to say that we'll present the findings to our management in the next coming weeks, and hopefully we'll get the buy-in to go deeper into it. Because as I said at the beginning, we not only manage mainframe application, we have distributed application, we have different platforms, different locations. So we could. This is a proof of concept. Now we're going to come up with some results, and I think when they'll see the benefits. And then we'll be able to build a business case for a bigger project. Yeah, but we're lucky because we're a financial corporation, but still we have a lot of leeway in doing things on the side. So.
Now, in the interest of time, I suggest let's take the remaining questions into the break. Let's move on to the next speaker, and let's thank Olga and Daniel once more.
Thank you.
Thank you.